Good morning. I'm going to continue on the path of going into the topic of Advaita. And I'm going to tell some of my own stories. So I would hope that you'd bear with me. It may seem boring for me to tell a little story or whatever. But my point in telling you the story, my own personal story, is that maybe you can relate it to your own life. And that will allow you to see either where you are on the path, or that maybe you're exactly on the correct path and you're doing fine. Or at least if that's not the case, then at least maybe it will give you the hope that in fact there is a way to understand Advaita through enlightenment and stuff. And so I'm going to talk about a few stories like that that are personal to me, that are my own experiences. Oh, by the way, Happy New Year, 2026. January 5th is today. I'm looking at my iPad because I do have a few highlighted pointers that I wanted to remind myself to talk about. I think the first thing I wanted to talk about is, how did I come up with the idea of essence? And you know how when I talk about what is your source, why is it in my talking about the difference between duality and non-duality, which is not anything close to the concept of duality or non-duality as preached by literally anyone in the world. They all preach it differently and misunderstand it. So I'm going to go into that a little bit. Now, how did I come to the concept of essence? And they're kind of funny stories, and but I'll tell you the process of how I got there. I will tell you that the concept of essence came after God enlightenment. It also came after Buddha enlightenment. It was, I guess, it is delving deep into Brahman, Shunyata, the essence of nothingness, where the essence is, where everything is. And so how did that come about? Well, it came about after all the enlightenments. And that would explain also, literally no Buddhists understand the Lotus Sutra because they're held to a rigid belief system that is based upon concrete teachings. In other words, people are more, it same holds true in Christianity and everything else. People are more prone to following and believing in something that's concrete and solid, that intangible, that they can hold on to. It's like a security blanket. It's like a what do you call a baby sucks on a nipple, and after they don't need it anymore, they still, for security, have to have their little bottle with a nipple and stuff like that. That is the same thing as recognized Buddhists, recognized Christians. Everyone wants something solid to hold on to. And that's the problem with transcending these concrete beliefs that are so essential, because in enlightenment, there's nothing left to hold on to. You lose your footing, you lose everything. And this is what is so fearful, and what keeps people from becoming enlightened. And so when I was talking about Buddhists, they believe in non-duality because that is the belief system that holds them in check, so to say. And that is also a concept that keeps them from transcending the ignorance of organized belief systems and religions, which is Buddhism. Buddhism is not bad, it's good, it's wonderful. But it has its own time and place, just like Christianity and all the other belief systems. It serves a purpose to help. It's not a hindrance. I know a lot of people could see Christianity as a hindrance, Buddhism as a hindrance, organized religion as a hindrance, but it can be a hindrance, but it is also a building block for your development at a different stage in your life. And that's true for everyone. So all I'm saying is the process of transcending one after another to becoming enlightened, you have to surrender all these belief systems. In other words, the reason I'm saying Buddhism right now is because that is a spiritual belief system that is also grounded in beliefs that are not true. Does that mean they're all not true? No. Probably 95% of them are true. It's the concept of non-duality that is not true in Buddhism. And I'm getting off track, but by golly, I feel like going off track. What I mean by this is Buddha, when I just told you, I didn't learn the concept of essence until after God enlightenment, until after Buddha enlightenment. And if you think about what Buddha knew, and it's mistakenly assumed that he sat under a lotus tree, became in lotus tree, not a lotus tree. My God. Anyways, whatever the tree was, he sat under the tree and became enlightened. And it's assumed that that's the end all be all. I mean, from that point, 40 years later in his life, he was no more intelligent than he was on that particular day. But that isn't true. And it's, and I won't say clearly spelled out, it is extremely well hidden in the Lotus Sutra that he knew that non-duality was not a correct teaching, that in fact what I teach, duality, was the true concept. And like I said, he put this in the Lotus Sutra, hid it extremely well. But he didn't learn the truth of God and the concept of duality until probably 30 years after he became enlightened. And of course, he didn't change his teaching because 2,500 years ago, the people and the world were not ready for that yet because Jesus hadn't even come on the scene yet. And so he hid it very well. Let's put it that way. So going on with that, how did I find out about the essence? Well, the funny story is I met in a Sangha group with, I like to call him Guru Jim. His name was Jim McKenna. He was probably one of the most awful gurus that you can imagine. He was egocentric, he was narcissistic, a sociopath, mean-spirited most of the time. He offended literally everyone he ever met. He got kicked out of the Sangha eventually. The people that owned the home kicked him out and he had to go elsewhere. And he was probably at this particular time 71 years old-ish, 70, 71, right in there somewhere. But he was enlightened, non-duality a belief system, but he was an extremely caustic personality and extremely knowledgeable. I mean, this guy had an incredible brain. He apparently consumed volumes of spiritual literature when he was very young. Like I recall him saying his parents were teachers or professors and stuff like that. And so as a child, he played around in libraries and stuff like that. And and I believe at the time, so he must have died almost 10 years ago because I'm 10 years older. I mean, excuse me, he was about 10 or 11 years older than I am. And we used to argue incessantly. And I mean, we would be this close to each other's noses, yelling at each other, while 20 some odd people are in the Sangha going, "Oh my God, what the hell is going on? This is insane." And he was bigger than me. I mean, like, how tall was he? He had to be at least 6'4" maybe. Probably weighed 280 pounds-ish. He was a big guy. But the odd thing was, I met with him, not during Sangha, but on weekdays, because I'm retired. I'd call him up and meet with him. And this went on for a couple of years. I would call him up and invite him out to have latte. And we'd go to some coffee shop somewhere and get a latte, and we'd just sit and chit-chat for hours. And I'd take him back home to where he lived. And I don't even remember how many times this took place. 30, 40 times over the course of 3+4 years maybe. And I would just endlessly interrogate him, essentially, because I knew he had something. I didn't know exactly what it was that he had, but I knew he had something in regards to enlightenment. And at the exact same time, I wasn't interrogating him so much that I was trying to learn from him, but it was a symbiotic relationship. Mind you, I came into the spiritual path of trying to learn about enlightenment and stuff like that from organized Christian religion. I was a devout LDS or Latter-day Saint or Mormon, as you know them, for 35 years. And out of that 35 years, there was probably close to 20 years I was innately involved in the missionary process of the organized Church of Mormonism. And so I learned how to be a missionary. I learned how to teach the gospel. I learned it's not so much about the gospel as much as it is about learning through the process of love, and it truly is a love of people. You're trying to help them. In other words, You can't teach anyone the truth of spirituality if you don't love them. It just literally isn't possible. You can teach them concepts, you can teach them all kinds of things, but you can't teach them the real truth without you loving them. And then in turn, they must love you. Otherwise, the critical, deep spiritual truths can never transfer from one person to another. And it really isn't a transfer, more so than it is a teaching of the person to get in contact with the creator of all things, God, Brahma, maybe even Christ. Krishna, if you believe in that process, because Krishna is the same thing as Jesus. I mean, the same individual, they just did a different dispensation of time. Anyways, notice how I matter-of-factly go on with things that are just completely so bizarre. In other words, who would say that Krishna and Jesus are the same individual? Literally no one, but it's true, and I know it's true, yeah, but that's a different story. So getting back to the concept of how did I come upon the understanding of the essence? Well, I would argue or have discussions with Guru Jim for it seemed endless, like months, like a dozen or 24 meetings with him for half the day, and we would chit chat and everything, and I would be teaching him because he was of the non-duality concept, and I knew non-duality wasn't true because I would say, well, a human being has a soul, and then he used his knowledge of non-duality to twist it or to force me into the thinking that all souls come from the same source. So therefore, whatever soul it is you have, it therefore is God. And if you have a soul, then you are God, because all souls belong to God. And we would get into these deep discussions, and still I knew he was wrong, and yet he was right. And so I would say, well, the soul, but the true source of the soul is itty bitty teeny weeny. It's smaller than an atom. No, it's smaller than an electron. And then I would get down, no, it's slower than a muon or whatever they say, or electron, muons, and it's a Planck length. It's so dinky, and on and on and on about the concept of the essence. And every time I did that, he would prove me wrong. And of course, the default is back to non-duality. And yet I knew innately inside myself that that was wrong, but I didn't know why it was wrong. And so I would pray, and I would fast, and I would meditate, and all of this on my own. I used to take trips. Like I would get in my Toyota 4Runner and I would leave for 2 weeks. I'm married, by the way, and I am unbelievably blessed to have a wife that trusts me and loves me. Mind you, we met in high school, so maybe that goes a long ways with trust, but I at this point of my progression, looking back, I don't know how a normal wife or spouse could trust their partner, leaving for 2 weeks to just meditate in unknown places. And, looking back on it, I don't know how my wife was able to endure that. But she did, and she did kindly, and she just knew that's something I had to do. Well, anyways, in Sangha, I would come back, and There was another person in Sangha that was a college math professor. He was younger than me by, I'm guessing 10 years younger than me. And his name was Kevin. He was one of the best friends of the Guru, Jim. And they got along like super well. By the way, eventually I got along super well with Guru Jim too. Him and I had the greatest respect for each other. And I did truly love him. And in his own way, I'm 100% sure he loved me. But anyways, Kevin, he was dead set on non-duality. I mean, this guy was unbreakable. He was probably, next to myself, the most ardent supporter of Guru Jim, and he assumed himself to be enlightened, and yet I know that he was only partially enlightened. I know that absolutely, regardless of what he thinks, because he was of the belief system of non-duality, but not so much about non-duality. More so, he was of the belief system that everything is nonsense. Everything is a joke. Every life is a joke. Reality is a joke. Since he grasped for a moment or two in his life the concept of enlightenment, he was led to believe in the concept that everything is a joke. Life is a joke. Reality is a joke. And so it was not possible to get through to him. And so him and I would have deep, deep spiritual conversations, not only in the Sangha group, but also outside the Sangha group sometimes. I met with him a few times. When I say a few times, maybe a dozen times outside the Sangha group. But I met many, many, many times with Guru Jim. And it was exasperating trying to communicate with Kevin because he was of the belief system that everything is nothing, which is Brahman. And trying to understand and to get through to him, sometimes I'd get so exasperated with them at Sangha that I would just like, okay, I'm packing it in. And I would get in my Toyota 4Runner and I would leave town, and sometimes I might be gone for 2 or 3 weeks. And I would spend time by myself, just in the middle of nowhere for days and days and days, and reaching out to God for guidance and direction. I did not bring books with me to study. I went directly to the source. And then I would come back and argue incessantly with Kevin about the concept. And this is after God enlightenment and Buddha enlightenment. And what happened was, because of Kevin, I was at home one day by myself, meditating and thinking, and I had a revelation about the concept of essence. And it was in conjunction with the belief system of Kevin, of Brahman, the nothingness, the darkness, when I say darkness, it's not even dark. Brahman is the essence of nothingness, but the essence of nothingness is where everythingness projects. And so I had a revelation that made it crystal clear to me, oh, this is how duality and non-duality in the concept of Advaita was understood by the original person who coined the phrase or the word Advaita. And honestly, I don't believe anyone knows who that was thousands of years ago. I mean, maybe they can attribute it to Buddha, or they can attribute it to Krishna, or they can attribute it to who knows, but really nobody really knows who it was attributed to, except for the fact that since I now understand the concept of Advaita, then I would have to conclude that it was understood and coined in the Yuga where literally everyone was enlightened, the golden age of awareness and everything. The one that we will go into after the Kali Yuga that we're in right now. But that's when the concept of Advaita was properly understood. And it's been misunderstood for many hundreds of thousands of years. Nevertheless, the word comes through and still survives to this day, although it's misunderstood. But yeah, that's how I came upon it, was a revelation about the concept of Brahman. So I learned the true nature of Brahman and the true nature of essence and the true nature of why there's so much confusion between duality and non-duality. And I understood this through a revelation from God, from Brahma. And it was like, oh, essence, essence. I can't think of another word other than essence. So the essence of myself and the essence of you and the essence of Brahma and the essence of Christ and the essence of every living thing that has a soul, every living thing that has a soul has its own individual essence. Now, mind you, I'm using words that are not accurate because there's no possible way to convey this information in this three-dimensional physical reality. It can't be done. I can use words, but you are the one that has to translate that through God, through enlightenment, through whatever. It is the same concept of me talking about a lemon. You've heard me talk about that many times, where I can hold a lemon and eat a lemon and talk about a lemon, and the taste of that lemon will never translate to you using everything that I can possibly use. I can't translate it to you. You actually have to eat the physical lemon to get that taste and understand it from that level. It's a quantum level beyond what I am able to relay to you. The same holds true with the concept of your own personal essence and how it is separated from Brahma, from me, in such a way that I say duality is the true spiritual nature of your source, rather than duality, which is a misconception of Advaita. Non-duality holds true right up until you get to Brahman. Once you get to Brahman, all of that goes out the window. There is no way to understand the true nature of your essence without it being understood from the concept of Brahman. And when you understand it to that level, then you will understand the concept of duality and non-duality. Non-duality is a concept that holds true outside the unorganized nature of Brahman. The organized nature takes place in Brahma, and in the organized place of Brahma, then everything is non-duality. And you coexist in this thing, therefore you could say, oh yeah, non-duality is true, but only here. But here is an illusion. It isn't real. It doesn't exist other than through the concept of illusion created by Brahma and co-created by yourself. And so in this complex situation that we find ourselves, there is multiplicity everywhere, but it's also non-dual. But you got to remember, this isn't real. This is an illusion. What is real is Brahman, and that cannot be construed as non-dual. That's not even possible, because both non-dual and dual don't hold true in Brahman. So it is a false thing to interpret Advaita and say, not two. Well, it isn't two, but it isn't one either. It is zero. That's what it is. It is zero. But then how do you take zero and have an existence of something? It is a very difficult thing to explain, but that's what occurred to me in a revelation from Brahma, God, the God that Jesus prayed to, directly to me, because of my frustration of dealing with Kevin about the concept of duality and non-duality. That's how that came about. And I am so grateful for that time that I had with both of them. Now, I want to talk about something else, and I don't want to drag this video out too long, but I want to talk about something else that was just experienced. And this will help you to relate it to your own personal self. I have a son-in-law named Jacob, married to my second oldest daughter. And he's a school teacher. Wonderful husband to my daughter. Wonderful father to his children. But he's devout Mormon, and we were all together this last Christmas. When I say last Christmas, just last week, and we were having a discussion at the table with my youngest son, Jacob, and myself about spiritual kind of concept and everything. And I just said something matter-of-factly, excuse me, and brought the topic up, and my youngest son understood it crystal clear, but Jacob didn't. And he denied that what I said was true. And yet, it is something spiritual that you and I understand crystal clear. I couldn't get him to believe it, literally, if his life depended on it. He would have chose death rather than to break his ties to what he believes is true, what he is taught, the doctrine of what the church teaches him, the, if you will, brainwashing, which all of you are brainwashed. We all become brainwashed. When we're born into this world, we're brainwashed, one way or another. And we are taught how to deal within this physical reality. And that is a huge stumbling block to becoming enlightened. Extremely difficult. So him and I talked about this concept of spiritual stuff. It went nowhere. In fact, it got to the point where it seemed to be getting heated. And so basically, I know it sounds condescending, but I had to break it off and say, I can see where this is going, and it's not going anywhere positive. So maybe we need to restrict our conversations to the weather outside, politics, more things that are in common with us rather than talking about spiritual concepts. You can relate that to your own self personally. In other words, even though you might not have a negative, agitative type concept when you listen to me talk about spiritual things, even though that might not exist between you and I, it does exist because you don't understand the concepts of enlightenment, which is why you're not enlightened. And you think that you have an open mind, and you think you're open to learning things, but you're not. But don't be offended. I was in the same boat. That's why I told you the story of the concept of essence. It took probably maybe a year of talking with Kevin and Jim and arguing, and they didn't know, but I didn't know either. And through that and praying and everything else is how I finally learned. That was not an easy process, but I had to get rid of the ignorance within me before God could open the door to teach me the truth. The same holds true for you. You need to recognize that the ego in everyone is what keeps them from enlightenment, or at least it's a major deal. I'm going to try to breeze through these last few items a little quicker. Because dealing with the exact same thing, I told you that I had an 8-year curse that I had to go through. It's like in the Bible, like the story of Job, where he went through terrible, terrible trials inflicted upon him by Satan as a test, basically, to see whether or not he would pass the test. And in the end, he passed it. But for me, it was the same thing. I went through 8 years of the most terrible, horrifying curse, the most insidious, difficult, ungodly, just, oh my gosh, it was horrible. 8 years. I'm trying to relay to you how horrible and difficult it was. It was insidious. But what was it really? What was it? I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was the process of God breaking down my ego. It was the process of God preparing me for enlightenment. It was the process necessary to destroy the brainwashing that I had been taught from birth. It was the process of destroying the ego to the point where you just go, I can't do this anymore. I'm throwing in the towel. I can't take any more of this. I just can't do it anymore. Now, a normal person that gets to that point would consider suicide. It's like, I can't deal with this anymore. But since that wasn't in my nature, what was I throwing in the towel for? What was I doing that caused the curse to end, basically. Well, what it was is just going, I don't know what is true. I don't know what is supposed to be true. I don't know if there's a God or there isn't a God after 30 some odd years of being devout Christian, 40 years of studying. I just don't know what's true anymore. I'm just at the end of my rope, God. I believe in you, but at the exact same time, I can't take it anymore. I'm just, but the only thing left in my heart and soul was this profound love for God. I developed this profound love that I think is equal to the profound love of Jesus to have with his Father in heaven. I had that same love. And so I was essentially crying to God for relief. And that is what, when I say that, I essentially gave God an ultimatum, and I'm not going to go into the details right here and now, but it's like, if this doesn't happen, then that's going to happen, and blah, 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 blah. And I made this ultimatum, but not in a non-loving way. It was in an extreme loving way, not to pit God against anything or me or anything else. But it was an ultimatum. And the ultimatum was designed by myself, and it had to be carried out in a certain time frame. And God provided me with the miracle. And that was the door that opened after 8 years that brought to me God enlightenment. And to this day, it almost brings tears to my eyes. I was so grateful for that experience that has stayed with me eternally. And yeah, absolutely. It went from if you take a needle on a scale and go, this is the worst of the worst of the worst. It can't get worse. I mean, death is not worse than this. This is the worst. It's like if your wife and children and everybody were to be massacred and died, this was worse than that. And it went from there to pegged on the other side to it can't get better than this. I mean, like that is God enlightenment. That's what happened to me. So the next concept, I'm going through things really quick, but the next concept is life after death. A lot of people have concerns, like I would say most people have concerns, like what is exactly taking place life after death? Well, first off, knowing that this reality is an illusion. Nevertheless, you and I are here. We've agreed to be here and be born in this reality. But the concept of death, where we separate our soul from the physical body, and so what exactly takes place with that soul? Well, a lot of people would think, well, it's like a nebulous thing, and it's like you have no controls, and you're going to lose connection with your knowledge and awareness. No. Just the opposite's true. Let me explain this really quickly. Life after death. When you are in an awareness state after death, you no longer have the restraints of a physical body, and you are reconnected with your full awareness. Like, seriously, you are at the level of a God, essentially. And you exist in another reality realm that is free of the constraints of a physical body. Now, there is a problem with that area, which is why you are sitting here listening to me on this video, that you've chosen to be in a physical reality. Call it the wheel of samsara if you want, but there is a problem with being there instead of here. And the only problem is there you don't have the benefit of time and space. And what do I mean by the benefit of time and space? Well, whatever it is what you are. For instance, if you're not one with God yet, and you're there, but you're like a God, and you have the instant recollection of millions upon millions, if not billions and billions of years of experience and multiple lifetimes, and you have all that at instant recall. I mean, it's not like you have a faulty memory or anything like that. There is no, I'm not going to remember myself or my family or my dearly beloved, whatever the case may be. No, it's crystal clear. But the only problem is you're limited. In other words, there's no growing. There's no becoming more like God. You cannot spiritually progress there. You're not going to regress either, basically. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I was questioning my own self, but yeah. So what happens is you become like what happens is you go, I wish I could, it would be like in this reality. I want to be a better woodworker. I want to be a better spiritual person. I want to be a better weightlifter. Whatever it is that you want to become, you actually have to do something to become that. It's not like you can instantly think it and it happens. You have to actually do something. But you can't do it there. That's the problem. You can contemplate it and say, I want to do this, but you can't actually do it. We could get into details of that if you want someday, but suffice it to say, you are what you are. But you have the opportunity to change what you are here in this physical format. Although it is extremely unknown while you're sitting there. You don't know coming down here or coming to this carnal reality, you don't know if you're going to progress or digress. Are you going to become evil or are you going to become more good? You don't know until you actually get here and live here and die and go back there. You don't know because you're subjected to so many things here without the benefit of a continuity with your self. You live here by faith. You live here by belief systems. You live here by, there's an inner self inside your heart and soul that you think is true, but you don't know is true. And that's where you get off on, oh, I believe in Buddhism, I believe in this. And you cling to certain things because you have this desire to cling. You want something to hold on to, but there's nothing to hold on to, or there shouldn't be anything to hold on to other than love. And when you focus upon love and you come here to this reality, well, then the trials start. 8 years of terrible curses. What's the result? You end up hating God or loving God. It's all about that. That's what this physical reality is about. And that is why it is so valuable to you. I mean, you get so tired, when I say you, literally everyone, can get so exhausted and tired and frustrated with life. It's like, why is it so hard and everything? But it has to be that way. And you need to take advantage of it. You need to recognize you chose to be here at this time and in this place. And recognize that and take advantage of that. Even though it's difficult and hard, recognize that this is an opportunity that you personally chose to be here. Anyways, okay. Oh my gosh, I got a few more things to talk about. Just two more things. Hey, wait a second. Nope, I already got that. Yay. Okay, so I'm looking at my iPad. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and it's just a recap of everything I already said. It all dials back to Advaita. It all dials back to the difference between duality and non-duality. In a non-dual scenario, like life after death, there's no progression. You're not growing. You're not developing. There is no way for you to become any better, to become any more Christ-like, to become any more God-like. There's no way. It's a fixed thing. It is the concept of non-duality, life after death. Here, you have an opportunity to break that concept of non-duality. It all comes down to Advaita. Advaita is a extremely complex concept. I know that they teach you how simple it is. Oh, non-duality means you're God and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, life after death in that concept, but here it doesn't hold true. You have time, you have space, you have the atonement of Jesus, you have all sorts of things here that are not available anywhere else. Take advantage of it. When I say learn the true concept of Advaita, you're not going to be able to learn it without praying to God, meditating, contemplating, and recognizing that no organized religion is going to know the truth. It doesn't know the truth. It on purposely teaches falsehood. Why? Because you're in this environment to stand on your own 2 feet, so to say. You're not going to be able to rely upon an organized religion. So basically, what the heck am I doing? Why do I make these videos? I do it because I love you. I do it because I love God. I do it because I know in my own personal experience throughout my entire life how frustrating it was so many times. And I also learned how wonderful it was for someone to teach me one thing or another. And that could be true about anything, about welding, woodworking, the fire department, learning about being a paramedic, and it holds true with spirituality also. Those rare opportunities that you can learn something from someone, you need to take advantage of it. And the huge problem with doing that is ego, is breaking the brainwashing that is prevalently here on this physical plane of existence to lead you astray, to test you to the limits of what you are, to test you to the limits of what your faith will carry you, your innate inner essence soul will guide and direct you rather than you relying on something else. So when I'm teaching you stuff, what in essence am I teaching you? In essence, I'm not teaching you anything that you don't already know innately. And when I say you don't already know, it's because what you're learning from me is trust, is dependability, is non-betrayal, is love, is I'm conveying to you a concept of love, and by you listening, you're conveying to me a concept of love. I'm not asking anything from you, and you're not asking anything from me. We are coexisting as friends. That is what we do in this reality to grow and to become more spiritually wise and aware and recognize that in this physical world, it is meant to be extremely difficult. So just do the best you can to get by. Also, there are people that I teach that are focused upon wealth. Good for you. But recognize that too is a difficult thing to control. Don't let wealth control you. You control the wealth. There is nothing innately evil about wealth. It's the character inside of an individual that uses wealth to, it's like putting fertilizer on a plant or whatever. The wealth will make whatever it is inside that person more so. So in other words, if you really are in your heart and soul a loving person, and no matter what, there's nothing that can corrupt you. You are a perfect, pure heart based in love. Then if wealth were to come to you, that will manifest out. That will allow the essence of what you are to develop out even more so. But if there is the hint, the slightest hint of darkness in you about trying to control people, about evil or anything like that, OMG, the wealth is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It will explode the evilness, and you won't know what in the heck is going on. So, my advice to anyone that is focusing upon wealth, recognize that in itself it's not evil, but just recognize it's pouring gasoline on a fire if there's a concept of evil or anything like that in your heart and soul. Just make sure you pray daily that you eradicate the evil in you as you pursue a path of wealth. Just make sure you do that, and you'll be just fine. But recognize wealth can also be used to destroy you. So in other words, and this is a common thing for spiritual people, whether you know it or not. You might be blessed with a lot of wealth, and then magically that wealth is ripped from you. I mean, like an evil bastard might start suing you, and this and that, and everything goes wrong, and all of that wealth is ripped from you. And that will, if there's any source of evil in you, that'll rip you to shreds, and you'll want to retaliate and everything else, and I want my wealth back, and that's a way to test you. But as long as you have an attitude of, you know what, I'm doing the best I can, and the evil people are going to financially destroy me, it is what it is. If you look at it that way, well, there again, no harm. That's fine too, but just recognize that is a common thing. That is a common thing for people, is if they think there's no evil in them, wait and see what happens when evil rips that wealth from your hands and bankrupts you and stuff like that. So, knowing that, before you become wealthy. A wise person would situate their wealth in such a way as to protect it, so that when they are ravaged by the evil to test them, their wealth is secured somehow. And I don't know how, but somehow secured, so that when that day comes, the evil will gobble up a certain portion of your wealth, but not all of it. You'll still be protected in that way. Do that if you're a good person. Anyways, with that, I'm going to close. I don't know how long this video is gone, but it's gone a very long time, I think. Anyways, I love you, and hopefully I'll make a video next week. Talk to you later. Bye.